All right, everyone. So I'm from Eastern College, and the next speaker that's going to be coming up is going to be talking to you about a lot of diversity and a little bit about her school. And she's got all kinds of awards for all of her inclusion stuff that she does, and has spoken about it all over the place. So with great pleasure, I want to announce that Corey Hunter will be coming up to speak to you now.
Good morning, everybody. How are you this morning? Good. I know you can be more excitable than that. I heard you with the last guy. There's speakers out back. So as Anna mentioned, I'm from Eastern College, and I'm very excited to be here speaking with you this morning. As you may have noticed from, oops, somebody was bound to do that, right? There we go. So, as you may have noticed from the agenda, my name is Corey Hunter, and as it was mentioned to you before, I am an instructor with Eastern College. But in addition to being an instructor, I'm also an activist and a public speaker. So I've been going around and talking about gender equity and the LGBTQ+ community for about 15 years now, all over Atlantic Canada and around the Maritimes. And that has put me in a very fortunate position to witness a lot of really positive change around the world. In addition to this, I'm also a child and youth care practitioner and manager. So before coming to Eastern, I worked with the regional management for CBI Health Group, and that's the largest integrated privatized healthcare network in Canada. So it's a really, really, really big team, and what I did is I was in charge of overseeing the residential and community homes for youth that had been displaced either because of abuse or neglect or because of complex developmental delays, that they could no longer live at home. So that's a little bit about me, and that's a little bit about what I do. But I'm not here to talk to you about all of that, believe it or not. I actually want to talk to you this morning about community and connections, and I want to talk to you about empowerment. You see, I'm very familiar with the city of Moncton. I actually have lived here a couple of times throughout my career. I've just found my way back here to teach again, and it's great to be here. But Moncton is actually where I first started my career, and I started in my very first clinical job. And Moncton had a lot to offer me when I first came here. There were lots of great job opportunities. I was able to make a few friends in the community, and I was able to get connected. But the really, really most impressive thing to me that I was able to learn about and that I was able to discover here in Moncton was about the transgender community. What I haven't shared with you so far this morning is the fact that I am also a transgender woman. And what this means is that I was born a boy, and I've gone through quite a journey to become the person that I am today. And when I first came to Moncton, all I really understood was the basic definition of transgender. I didn't understand much else beyond it. And coming here gave me the greatest gift. It gave me education, and it gave me connections. Coming here allowed me to learn from a place called the Salvis Clinic. I'm not sure if any of you have ever heard of it or possibly even been there, but it's a wonderful clinic just down on Church Street. And when I was there, I learned a whole lot. I learned about this whole umbrella term, about what it was to be transgender, but I also learned that there were a lot of different kinds of people out there, and that it was a growing list that seemed to get a little longer all the time. I also noticed that there was a difference between gender identity and expression and sexual orientation. Gender identity had to do with who you felt you were and how you dressed, how you acted, whereas orientation had to do with your interests and your attractions. The reason why this was so impressive to me, obviously, is because of how it related to me personally. The fact that I saw myself in this group of people, and I realized that moving here to Moncton and starting my career, it was only the beginning of my journey. I actually had a lot of other changes that I needed to make in my life and in the world around me. Beyond this, I decided that I needed to get my journey started with my transition, but I also needed to become more connected to the community. I was new to Moncton. I hadn't lived here before, and I found out very quickly that it was challenging to make friends and get connected as an adult. See, up until now, I had always been a very involved student. I was somebody who went down south to Honduras with global medical brigades and ran medical clinics through my university. I was with the school band. I was the president of the peer counselors. I started my high school's Gay-Straight Alliance. But all of these community projects, all of these endeavors were all based out of a school system. And now I was an adult, and I was on my own. I was in my first clinical job, and I'm making huge shifts and changes to the very infrastructure of my life. And what was I craving more than anything? A social connection, a person, a place to belong. I managed to find a few interesting places to go out and about. I started performing, and I got a weekly cabaret act, and I started doing karaoke nights and judging vocal competitions and finding different ways to connect with the community, but I felt like I was very limited. Outside of going to what was called Triangles at the time, the gay bar, I didn't really know how to meet people. Everything seemed to be online and social networking or people who were going to school, and that wasn't me anymore. And it was really, really hard to make a connection. But outside of that, I was happy with the connections I was making, and life overall wasn't too bad. When I came out to my mom, she was very supportive. One of the first things she told me was, well, if you're transgender, we're going to need to go shopping because you are going to need some dresses to wear to work this summer, lady. And we went shopping. My friends were very supportive. It was almost like they knew before I did. They're like, duh, what took you so long to catch up? They were very supportive, overwhelmingly so. And working in a clinical setting, I was very surprised that even my 106-year-old patient, my oldest patient, started using the correct pronouns when talking to me. So if all of this is so perfect, why am I here talking to you about a journey that's had struggles and ups and downs? The reason is because there were surprises and there were barriers and there were hiccups. And although these three different things looked so perfect, there were other things going on too. You see, the doctors and the nurses, the PSWs and clinicians that I worked alongside, they made a lot of these comments like you see here on the screen. They didn't think it was appropriate that I came to work dressing and looking and acting as I did. They felt that it was some sort of strange perversion that I was forcing upon my patients and upon my colleagues. Every single one of these comments was a little bit of a dig inside of me. And it destroyed me and it took me down just a little bit more every single time. It didn't get easier, it just got harder. One of the problems is that I was alone in that environment. A 200-bed facility. I was the only transgender worker or resident there. There were not many other people from the LGBTQ+ community, and I didn't really know where to get support from. I felt lonely. I felt alone. I didn't have strong friendships. I had a couple of good friends that I knew that I would see on a regular basis. A lot of people would argue that I was popular and had a ton of friends, but they were mostly people who came to my events, came to show up, or people I would bump into or show up at a party. They weren't people that I could talk to about my emotions, my feelings, my struggles, and my barriers. And without those strong connections, my life started to change for the worse. I started slipping into my own depression, and that took a lot of different faces. First of all, I stopped eating. I'm a tiny person by nature. I'm about 120 or 125 pounds, but at my lowest, I barely crept over 100. And as I stopped eating, I started getting sicker. I started having a hard time finding the energy to go to work, and I found myself in and out of the hospital repeatedly. Problems with my organs and my system and my digestive tract. Life was still getting harder. What does it take to pull somebody out of such a dark chasm? Honestly, it doesn't take as much as you think. All it took to make a difference for me was a little connection, a little spark of empowerment that was fueled by a meaningful connection. All it took was my mom worrying about me and crying. One best friend who checked on me every day to ask if I was all right. That's all it took to start inspiring me to make a difference. I started looking at my work world around me and I thought, this is unacceptable. I shouldn't think this way. And if there are people like my mom and my best friend who see so much value in me, why am I listening to these dark, terrible, mean words of my colleagues who just don't understand? They're ignorant because they don't want to know, or maybe they're ignorant because they just haven't had an opportunity to know. But at the end of the day, that shouldn't bring me down. So I started realizing that I needed to do the same thing I had seen a glimpse of in that connection with my mom and with my best friend. I needed to create connections at work. I needed to figure out who my support network was, and I needed them to help me make a plan. There's a very cliche saying that there's strength in numbers, and there's a truth to that too. We made a plan and we started seeing physical changes happen around the nursing home as all of a sudden gender-neutral locker rooms were built and educators came down from Ottawa. And what did that do? It changed the culture. Because I wasn't the only one trying to say something. There were other people having the conversation with me, and people started to listen. And this uplifted me. It made me believe in myself again, and all of a sudden I started getting back up on these stages. I started giving these talks again. I started talking about that struggle as well, and sharing that with people like you so you could understand how much it does hurt to judge somebody just on their appearance or the way they look. And what this did is it allowed me to soar. I left Moncton for a little while. I lived in Halifax, I lived in Fredericton, several different maritime cities, and I found myself working my way into training and management roles until finally I was working for CBI Health Group, as I mentioned, in the regional management, when an interesting opportunity came knocking at my door here at Eastern College. They were hiring a new child and youth care with addictions practitioner, instructor. That's a mouthful, isn't it? And it's a course that I strongly believe in because this is the educational requirement for people to come and work in the homes that I was managing, as well as to go into other roles like EAs and TAs. And I thought, what a great chance to have a bigger impression on my field of study. I wasn't certain at first because I'd never been a formal teacher. I'd given speeches and lectures and I'd received awards for all sorts of activist work, but to actually be a post-secondary instructor, I was nervous. But I decided to take that chance because you know what? People have believed in me before, so I should believe in me too. Walking into Eastern College, I was very surprised. Everything felt very different, and it felt very different right from the get-go. The first campus I was working on was in Fredericton, and I remember the stairs, and each step told you that you were on your journey towards career success. One word per step as you walked in every day. Little inspiring quotes and little things that made a difference to make you feel connected. Right away, I was attracted to the fact that we actually had really diverse programs that we were offering. But it wasn't even just the programs. It wasn't just the different curriculum pieces. It was how we built them. We were a team. We have curriculum specialists living in different cities, in different provinces, that network and collaborate and create our programs. They're experts in their field, and they don't just make PowerPoints and exams, they make interactive curriculum material. They make activities, they plan for social outings, they make the expectation of having in guest speakers and doing things that will engage our students in active learning. Right away, I was in love with the curriculum. But I didn't realize right away, until a few weeks passed, what I was actually gonna love the most about this job. It wasn't just the books, it wasn't just the paper, it was the students and the connections that I was making. You see, I started realizing that we had almost a bit of a magic recipe, if you will, over at Eastern, and it really, really was beautiful. Every student that walks into our school is different. Some of them are mature students, some of them are people fresh out of high school. The fact that we have 4-hour classes and they're nice short days with flexible accommodations, it attracts a very diverse group of people. And something that I've learned is that each one of them come with a different set of gifts to give us. They already have a toolbox with tools in it, but each one of them has a little spark or a drive to add new tools to that toolbox and to become something new and to become something better. And what we do is we don't just tell them what to do, but we help them grow. And we do it interactively. We have this little recipe that I kind of just threw up really quickly onto a slide, and I really think that this is what we do. I told you the first recipe for our success, and that is the curriculum. It's the environment, it's the support that we provide. But the second and the third ingredient, those are special. It's passion and it's love. It's the fact that we have instructors that believe in what we teach, that want to connect with people. They don't look at our students and say, you need to get in line and do things my way, but rather they think, how can I connect to you? We're person-centered, and we believe. And it's that love for our students, and it's the love that we show for what we're teaching that really brings about the final ingredient, and that's empowerment. It's the student's ability to believe in themselves. Beyond offering books, we offer leadership opportunities. We offer ways to get connected to the community. We offer social events where people can make friends and they can stay connected with one another. And beyond that, we do even more than that. We show them how they can achieve it for themselves as well. We encourage them to host things like mental health fairs where they can share their knowledge with the student body. We bring them together for potlucks and we organize them into groups. The reason why we do this is not just because we want to take a moment today to empower the students, but because we want to teach them how to empower one another. I was really, really proud of a couple of moments. I was proud, first of all, of this moment you'll see here in the picture where we made welcome buckets for everybody at the women's shelter because one of the students said it would be a nice thing to do. And next thing we knew, we were having a competition between all the different classes as to who could donate the most. What a great way to spark initiative. And it was all driven by a student. The other story that I love to tell is actually a recent one. I shouldn't say love to, I've only told it twice so far. It's the other day. I wanted to teach my students about empowerment, just like I want to talk to you about it today. And I put my students into a circle, and I did an activity with them, and I called it the hot seat. And what we did is we took turns, and we went around the circle, and we put one person in the hot seat, and everyone in the class had to share something that they liked about that person, something specific, something identifiable. And we took turns building that person up, and then we would move on to the next one. Why do we do that? Because at the end of that session, every single one of us felt empowered. What a better way to enter a discussion on empowerment and learn how we can share that and spread that around our world. I want to encourage every single one of you with a little call to action before I invite somebody else to complement my story up to the stage. I want you to see and realize that you can be this change. You can be a vehicle or a catalyst to change the language and change the culture in the world around you. You can find a place like a college or a workplace or an employer or a volunteer organization that inspires you and empowers you to be the most successful you that you can be. The tickets to achieving this are the connections that you make. It's the open mind that you keep. It's the community that you keep around you. So with that, I'm actually exceptionally proud to invite one of my students up to talk to you just for a couple of minutes before we bring up our next speaker. And Mr. Seth Wilcox is going to be sharing a couple of words about his story as he's come to Eastern College and he's began studying within our child and youth care program. So please help me welcome Seth up to the stage.
Well, hello, my name is Seth Wilcox, and I am a 19-year-old student studying at Eastern College for Child and Youth Care with Addiction Support. The woman you just heard from is my lovely instructor, Corey Hunter, and I must say she is the best instructor I've had in any of my years of schooling. So I am so excited to be here to share my story on how college has inspired and changed my life through empowerment and community. So before Eastern, I was actually living as a ward of the state, living in and out of group homes and foster homes since I was 6 years old, and I'm 19 now, so it's 13 years, and it was tough. For the past 5 years before I was at Eastern, I was actually living at a group home. I was actually in one when I enrolled at Eastern. And it was challenging. You know, it's not easy living in such a structured environment, especially with my particular set of needs that I needed. I actually went to Eastern because there was one particular instructor that she had taught a lot of the people I had worked with, and that was Suzanne Azevedo. And she's great. I noticed that all of the students that she had taught, I loved the way they interacted with me. They talked with me like I was another person, not just a workload, a caseload. And it was empowering, as Corey said. So deciding to come to Eastern, it was because of Suzanne, but what I like to say is that I came to Eastern because of Suzanne, but I stayed because of Corey. So I was nervous at first, living in a group home. I didn't get to go out much. I didn't have that many friends, but it all started to change once I started at Eastern. We started our first couple weeks doing a couple of just small modules with a mixed class, and that was where I developed a few friendships, and there was 5 of us that were going into CYC at that time, and one of them is actually in the audience, 2 of them actually, so that's Jen and Jazz right there, if you guys want to wave around. And they have been 2 of my biggest supports there. We've almost developed a kind of little family. So for anyone who knows much about Eastern, you'll notice that most of the students wear a green lanyard. I'm wearing a red one. And I remember it was one of my first weeks, and I asked my instructor at the time, I'm like, what are those for? And he said, those are for the SAC, the Student Ambassador Committee. And as soon as those words left his lips, something clicked in my mind, and I knew I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to take a leadership role. I wanted to be more than just a student. I wanted to be someone other students that they could look up to, ask questions. I wanted to be there, take an active and engaging role in what I was doing, and I am proud to do it because I applied and I got in, and I've had so many opportunities. Like there's this one big event that we do at Eastern annually. It's called Halloween Week, and I got to help organize some of the events, and so did Jazz. I talked her into doing it. At the end of the week, there is the big event, which is the classroom decorating contest. And I remember we took a full day and we decorated that classroom so well. We covered one entire wall with garbage bags. We went with the theme of a creepy nursery this year, so we had a bunch of dolls and painted their faces. It's kind of terrifying, not gonna lie. I stood on tables for the better part of that day hanging things from the ceiling, which was also terrifying because tables are short, I'm tall, doesn't mix well. So I've only been at Eastern for about 5 months now, but with all of the stuff that I've learned, I've started applying it to my life. And I've started using it to make myself better and to enhance the lives of others, because that's what I came into this particular field of study for. I want to help others through what I went through and make their life easier than it was for me, and make their transition from living in a residential environment to the real world as smooth and without as many challenges as possible. And I have been thriving on the support of my friends. I was really down in the hole, and the one person that really brought me out of it was Chelsea, right there, just calling out my class. We're a very close class, and I don't think I would have made it to where I am today without them. And my sincerest hope is that everyone in this audience can find a place that is as inspiring as Eastern was for me, and that you can all thrive and help others in your lives. Thank you.